I just want to say this, or ask this, and say something. How the hell would you maintain the ramp for the pyramids if you were going to build the pyramids? And at first it seems a little plausible, but you have to understand how many blocks are being placed and how much friction these ramps are actually taking. You're going to be building the ramp more than you're building the pyramids. Do the math. And I don't know how many people it takes to pull a block. I let's just say 10 people. Okay? 33 blocks are dragged up a ramp per hour. Right? At first, you don't need to always walk back down the ramp. But still, let's just say they work 10 hours a day. That's 330 blocks a day that they're going to place for 20 years. That's the number I go with. So, at 10 people alone, that is 3,300 people walking up this ramp. Layer 2, 6,600 people are encountering that initial ramp. Third layer. No, we're not even getting into the stones, actually, because it actually takes, there's like 8,000, or like almost 9,000 stones on the first layer, right? Maybe 10,000. Based on my math, it's probably not too good. But, so now we're talking 330 stones a day. At the second layer, you're gonna be rebuilding this ramp. I mean, like, constantly, and it better be a fucking good ramp, because it's gotta last. All right, and you're talking. This is just people walking, which. How do you build the ramp? How do you build it? You can't. You can't fucking build it. It compounds. And how long does it take? What, 9,000 divided by 300? That's 300. So 300 days to build the initial layer, where you have 3,300 footsteps. And then you got that. That's not even just the friction and the mass of the stones. It's not possible, dude. The ramp has inherent flaws. Do the math. Do the man hours. I mean, you can't even design the ramp. How are you going to design the ramp? What are you going to make the ramp out of? You're going to make it out of wood? Dude, there ain't wood strong enough for that. Wood falls apart. It's vulnerable. It's just fucking fancy carbon. And then you got... okay, let's just say, okay, they do use wood. And they got granite under the wood. So the wood will last longer, the sleds will last longer, whatever they're using. It now weighs more, and that cuts into the ramp. It is mind-boggling. I read something about they'd use water, and that lowers the friction coefficient. But even then, when you use water, you know, it's a polishing compound, and it becomes a buffing component. And while you have less friction, if you have stone rolling with itself, you actually prolong the amount of area that, because you don't have that abrasion. Okay, the water gives, but the stone, as it compacts, the sand, or you know what, the grains of the sand, and it's quartzite, and so that's harder than fucking granite. Even if you have granite sleds, how do you build this? How do you build the ramp? You can't do it. It's mind-boggling. And then the distance gets longer too. So per layer, on one side alone, no matter what fucking ramp it is, If you're gonna do the linear one that goes up to the side, or you got one on each side, or whatever you're doing, okay, you divide that by 4, you're still moving 2,000 fucking stones that compounds by those people per stone, per hour, per day. You're building the ramp throughout the night. Now you got people working day in and day out for 20 years just to maintain the ramp. They're working harder on the ramp than they are the pyramid. And these people are so clever, I don't think that they would reasonably assess the value of a ramp per man hour over the structure itself and its efficiency to construct it. Now, the internal water well, it has its flaws. It does. But it's the only one with evidence. If you built a fucking ramp, it just doesn't make any sense to me. People have never considered that. They think just, oh, inclined plane. We can't even maintain a fucking modern cement road, and let alone destroy it afterwards, because you still have to use it, and then you have to destroy it as you're building, you're building back down. But you've implemented so many man hours, almost probably as many, if not more, just to build the ramp. And it would take an entire forest of trees if you used just pure wood. Which, the video's going too long now, but you don't... Recently there were some records recovered of a merchant, and the records of the stones that were being imported. That's pretty cool. But we don't have any records of wood. And honestly, I bet those records would be destroyed to hide the fact of a global economy, which is where this kind of goes to. Looking at how the pyramids were structured here in Egypt or versus South America and stuff, and it definitely demonstrates. And you look at the history of when Cortez arrives, and the Aztecs are waiting for him. Not even waiting for him, but where's the Mayans? I forget my history. Tenochtitlan. Is that where they were brought? Yeah, the floating city. So they brought to the floating city, and they were welcomed. Yeah, it's very tragic, the whole thing. Anyway. How the fuck were they built?